James, you was actually one of the judges for Armies on Parade.
That first image you see of it, when you look at them and you're like, wow. Like,
What made some of the armies stand out more than others then?
it massively props you up and helps you by having that unifying thing across the army.
It kind of breaks a lot of army painting rules. That is one of the things that you can do to get a really, really impactful army. Hello everyone and welcome to Paint Perspective episode 76. In this episode, we're going to talk about how you can paint an award-winning Warhammer army. We're also going to be doing the news, of course, our hobby hacks and our question of the week. But first, Paul, how's the hobby been going?
Yes, slowly. Not much progress since 2-3 weeks ago when we last spoke about this, maybe. Stuff is still on the desk.
Has it moved on the desk though?
Around the desk. Yeah, sure. It's cleaning and tidying up. It's a bit dusty there. I'll just move that miniature 2 inches to the left.
So are you still on the, what, have you finished the lieutenant? Are you still on, are you on the next thing now?
Oh, yeah, no, the lieutenant.
Lieutenant,
yeah,
yeah,
I
sorry,
finished
yeah.
that. Oh, we finished that ages ago, didn't I? So,
what are you on currently?
well, I'm still working. I'm still working. I've got a Death Guard champion that I bought.
Yeah.
That I got.
It's not Gerg, is it?
No, no, it's not.
I know you and Gerg have got
No,
like
me and Gerg go way back. He's just a simple plague marine, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not champion status yet, although he is in my heart. He is good lad. So I've got that on the desk. It's undercoated, and there's ideas.
Okay.
But now I've sort of got to that part where I think, well, I don't. Death Guard, okay, it's that kind of muted green color, but does it have to be? So now I'm thinking maybe I could do him a different color. He's undercoated Death Guard green. I pre-sprayed him.
Are you regretting the pre-spray now?
Not really. I mean, it's just an undercoat,
You can
isn't
go
it?
over
So
it, yeah.
I can, do whatever you like. But
Could I table an idea for you?
yeah, sure.
Black Legion Nurgle.
I have seen some people.
We done some a long time ago
I
as a
have
company.
seen some black armor,
and they
yeah.
looked phenomenal. And I love the Abaddon books and like the Talon of Horus books. There's lots of cool descriptions in there about like Khorne, like Hounds of Abaddon, and you've got like Nurgle, and you've got like Thousand Suns that are in like Black Legion colours, and like like some really cool things you can do with it.
I was thinking maybe something in sort of high contrast where obviously black would work well with all like the pustules and like a bright yellow and things like that. So yeah, maybe. But I don't know. I just want to do something different. Everyone, Death Guard is always just this green colour, but
You got, is it pallid? What's the one that's really
the pallid hand.
Pallid hand. Yeah, I mean that's quite cool as well.
Yeah, they're sort of obviously an off-white sort of thing, but mostly look.
Is that like the heresy colour scheme sort of situation?
I can I'm not the greatest on Nurgle and Death Guard, but I should be,
obviously someone else will jump in the comments and say that, the timeline of these guys, but I think the pallid hand are still Death Guard.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. That's all I got for that. So I just want to do something other than green for a change. I was thinking, I don't know, something really high contrast, maybe. I don't know, but if black works. I'll see how that works with grime and stuff like that.
Because you can do like orange, like rust and stuff like that. And
yeah,
it
you can
shows
do that.
quite nice
That'll contrast really well against the black.
Yeah.
But I've still also got the I can never remember. Is it the Hellblasters guy from the Combat Patrol magazine?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's just a sergeant. He's just an Infernus Marine.
Oh, he's in Infernus. That's it. I can never remember which one he is. Yeah, so he's
cool little model, that.
It is, yeah. I've converted him a little bit to a Blood Angels miniature.
Yeah. Good choice.
And he's I think wasn't he standing on a Tyrannid piece or something like that?
So, yeah.
I've got rid of that. I've cut all that out, and he's now sort of on my own sort of tactical rock sort of makeup. Got the Tyrannid bit off, but yeah, I've got that. I've also got the new Blood Angels captain in the box. He's still in the box, and I keep giving him the old side eye. So I've had to put him away. It's like, I need to put you away.
So you're strolling along with like the Nurgle hand in hand, and you're looking over your shoulder, looking at the.
It's like that meme, isn't it? Yeah, I know you're talking. Yeah, so there's that. But,
is there like a little bit of analysis paralysis going on then? Because you can't decide on colours and stuff, and then you've also got other models trying to wane your attention.
Like, while you're deciding that, paint me,
Yeah.
But I don't want to paint that just yet. I'm sort of saving that till after Christmas. That might be like my birthday treat to myself, to start that up. So that's sort of next year. I don't think there's anything else I've got going on. I'm trying to build up on a few collections of paints and things because I'm lacking a few things. So I'm just building that up as well. And also very seriously considering getting an airbrush.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Nice.
Good choice.
Very seriously.
It will transform your efficiency, and you'll
It's a
love
game
it.
changer. It's like a new hobby,
Yeah.
but not for. I mean, primarily for just base like undercoating.
Yeah.
Because I use a rattle can. I just stand out in front garden in between the gusts of wind and go tss, tss, like that.
Yeah.
You know.
We've said many times that, I think you're pretty similar, James, like with my painting at the minute, airbrush is like a fundamental and critical tool to how I paint.
Yeah.
However, I only use it at the start. It's
Yeah.
like I'll prime and then get the base color on, and then the airbrush is not coming out
I'll get it out
Yeah.
again for a varnish now and again. But,
varnish, fair enough. But yeah.
Yeah. So maybe
It's like it's bookending the project. It's like the start
the start
of
and
the
the
end.
finish.
It's like 5% at the beginning, 5% at the end.
Yeah.
That's about it, really.
I think that'll be good for varnishing as well, because obviously currently I use a brush.
Yeah.
I think you have to be really careful
Yeah.
doing that with a brush.
It's night and day when you start using it for just base coats and varnishing. Like honestly, you'll be like, oh, why didn't I do this sooner? I promise you. Like I'm going to say this now. You'll say something akin to that when you get one and use it for the first time on here.
Yeah,
But
so I thought you just get sort of a little starter kit maybe, and and sort of see how that goes. But yeah, that's what I've got on the desk at the minute. It's a slow process, but actually, I'll tell you a lie. I did do some painting. I did start painting the red armor for the Infernus Sergeant.
Oh, amazing!
So
Okay.
I started painting that, getting that on there. So that was cool.
It's a really cool model, actually. I'm not going to pick one up because it will just go on the pile of
Potential.
stack, potential, race shame, whatever terminology you
In
wish
the
to
drawer
use.
out the way.
Yeah. It's definitely not Premier League. It's more Sunday Division, so Sunday League. So yeah.
I see.
So
I see how it is.
so yeah, but
I mean, it's a good model though. It's a nice
it's really
model.
cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I think
Yeah,
it's
I like it.
I think it's a great model.
Yeah, just whack a couple of Blood Angel shoulder pads on it.
Job done.
Couple of little gems here and there.
Job done.
Sorted.
Good. Yeah.
Sweet.
Can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Me either. I'll be quite cool.
Yeah.
Okay, on that note then, main topic. Armies on Parade was, of course, over the past couple of weeks. And seeing all of the lovely entries online, that got me thinking. Maybe we could talk, firstly, a little bit about the entries and the winners, and then maybe have a think about what are some things we like from their armies. And based on previous conversations we could have, maybe we could put some tips together for things to implement into a future army or a current army that you're painting to make them really, really stand out. So how to paint an army to an award-winning standard. What are some of the things that are sort of critical to that look? So for those of you who don't know, James, you was actually one of the judges for Armies on Parade.
I was, yeah. I was very, very honoured and privileged to get the opportunity to look at so many fantastic presentations of armies. And there were so many. Like I was just like, wow, like there's just literally so many to look at. But yeah, it was a really, really cool opportunity to just look at amazing things that the community had done for various different things. There was like obviously Age of Sigmar, like Escape Tide. There was obviously like just general presentations of Young Bloods, all those different things. Like a really, really cool opportunity to see like loads of different armies that have so many interesting little things going on. And it really, it fired me up to actually, not that I'm going to detract from
Rekindling
I'm
the old
not
armies
week
that you
2
got.
after
Just
saying
when
I'm
they
not
thought
doing
he was out,
just when
they pull him back
they pull
in.
me back in. I'm not. No, I'm not. There was an inkling there going, do I do the Mordian army and get it done? And I was like, no, stay on target. Yeah. So,
Do you know, I could just dig those out the
I could
cupboard
just
and
get there.
yeah.
No, they've not been relegated yet. Don't worry, it's fine. No, so a massive thank you to Games Workshop for asking me to be involved. I was really, really sort of like taken back by it because it's just a cool opportunity to give back, which I really like doing.
Timing was quite funny as well, actually, because you not long had the article of your Blood Angels army.
I know,
and that
yeah.
was all out on the scenery and
Yeah,
everything.
I know.
So
That
it's
was
like being on the other side of the.
I know it was just the one thing after. It was really cool actually, like to get both those things, which was just great. It was a great opportunity, and I was taken back by the amount of entries as there were so many, and they just spanned all different game systems, obviously from Games Workshop, and also just different like vibes on like even like one army or one faction would have like lots of different interpretations of it, and also presentations. So you had like these tiered things of investment that each person would put into.
I think we'll get to that a little bit in this conversation. Actually, is like what surprised me the most was the presentation of the models and how much it changes and impacts how they look. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
So-
well, that.
Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
So do they all have to have a certain points value?
No, it's just army. Just literally put an army
So
together.
you can just put as many.
I mean,
paint
if
as many
you
as
could
want.
paint 10,000 points, you can
Yeah.
enter 10,000
okay.
points. You know what I mean?
I thought perhaps that would sort of dictate sort of board size, display boards and things, because
I
obviously
think
different armies
there is
at
a
the same
size.
point.
There is a sizing, so there is a size, and you have to fit it all onto. But I think if you can, because people do like tiered ones, so you have like multi-level. I've seen ones in the past like where they've done like a surface level, then underground, like sub-underground terrain levels. Like you
wicked.
can, as long as you fit all the size
on it.
the space, like you can go up. Like, like you can do all different types of things, which is really...
Wheel this in on a trolley.
Yeah, well, you got to get it to your local store.
Necromunda skyscraper in there.
Exactly, yeah, full spire, yeah. But no, like, there's just like lots of little, like taking the time to look at all the entries and to like just really kind of like understand the passion and investment that those people put into it. I think was one of the most sort of like amazing things about it as well, because there was just like so many phenomenal entries, and right from like even like young bloods where like they've only been in the hobby for a while, they all do, and like just the hard work that even at like an entry level, like it's just really, really takes you back.
It's quite a commitment as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
you're not just painting one miniature for some like other competitions. You're painting the whole army.
It's a whole army.
Something that I'm not very good at doing. So
and also if you are going to do a display board, like the display board,
that's got to be just the same quality, isn't it?
100%. Yeah.
I think the whole sort of thing speaks to many of the points that have been brought up by like guests and us on the podcast in previous episodes, is like seeing the scale of things and seeing everything come together. Like we talk about trust the process a lot, and I think you can get quite caught up in the nuance of painting techniques and like quality when you're dealing with the individual models in your painting, but seeing everything on a board in its setting and scenery, I think it makes you realize the things that actually do stand out and do matter more than others.
Yeah.
So I think as painters, especially if you're a bit of a perfectionist, you can get into this sort of habit of trying to make sure all these tiny little details are perfect and kind of getting distracted by that and overlooking bigger decisions that would be more impactful. And not even just down to the choice of miniatures, but like the way you want to present them in terms of like color scheme, and then not only color schemes, but like complementary colors, obviously. But even if aside from the color theory stuff, it's like I said, so much of this is due to presentation for me, I think, because if all of these models were presented in a glass cabinet, no scenery, everything's very, very blank and bare, you're looking at it in a different way. You're looking at like, for example, you think of like Golden Demon. It's like, okay, I'm going to focus on the painting of this thing, but this kind of appreciates Warhammer more as a whole when you're seeing it on the big board and you're seeing everything kind of come together in the end. And I think that this is sort of more akin to how your models are actually going to be seen, especially if you're going to be gaming with them. They're going to be seen in that environment more often than they are going to be seen in a glass cabinet in your home, for example.
No, exactly. It's the interpretation of it. And it goes back to one of the episodes we had where Peachy was on, where he talks about spectacle. Yeah. Because that's very much what it is. It's like, bam, kind of like impact of the whole entire thing. So I think one of the things that I really liked is just how many people had actually taken that first like impact look of like how the presentation would be. And I think that's one of the things that really made it really interesting to look at so many submissions. It's just like how the presentation of the miniatures is actually done. It's one of the most engaging things, because you see that first image you see of it when you look at them and you're like, wow, like, that's when you start then dialing down and looking at more things, I suppose, individually or granular. But
it's given me some thoughts as well for my army, because when I'm painting, I'm typically painting smaller projects and I don't game or anything. So with the Blood Angels that I've started this year, that's my first like army project. Granted, it is slow, but it's made me think about how I'm going to choose to present that army, if you get what I mean, because it's one thing to see my models in a cabinet kind of with no context, like for example, even with a photo, like seeing a completely white background, whereas if you put it in setting, you have got a completely different interpretation of that, how it
carries
looks.
that sort of, like we said before, like the narrative, the story of that miniature down into the ground, like, and into its surrounding base. Yeah.
And it could be hard to present that without those context cues.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that I think when I'm getting a bit deeper into the project and I've got like more models completed, rather than trying to make decisions on quite a nuanced basis as I normally would, I might have to just sort of take a step back, maybe put them on a gaming table, have a think about how they're presented. Because like I said, those big sort of jaw-dropping things that like really catch the eye, make someone go, oh wow, aren't going to be the 5th stage edge highlight on his armpit around the back of the model.
No, exactly. You're 100% right. And like that, obviously we've spoken quite a lot about armies and presentation. It's something that we do obviously when we present armies for clients and those kind of stuff. And it is that kind of like that spectacle of seeing everything all together.
Yeah.
And I think like there's loads of things you can do really, really sort of like with it's composition. It's kind of like competition painting when you do squads or dioramas and stuff like that, the composition of how they're laid out, but on a much grander level with more miniatures and trying to hit an even bigger kind of, wow, look at this, you know? And I don't know, like, I think that we'll talk about, obviously there was loads of amazing entries, and like the one which won, so Andrea's, which was like this really cool Gloomspite Gitz army, like visually, like it's super interesting. And that's one of the things I think I wanted to talk about it specifically as a bit of a case study, because it kind of demonstrates a lot of really cool things, which is like, you've got like the actual scenery part of it, which the height of it is much taller than the rest of the force, so it kind of breaks up the sort of like more
sort of same
they're not
level.
the biggest models,
No.
so you have that like anchor point when you first look at it, you see that's for me like the thing that you see straight away.
In a way, though, I do actually think that army is a great example, because on paper, at first glance, it kind of breaks a lot of army painting rules, in the sense of there's actually quite a lot of vibrant and additional colours in there. And it's an army where the miniatures aren't super uniform. Like there's a lot of different skin. Like obviously, you've got like the trolls and the troggoths and the little goblins and the what they call the little squigs as well. Like you've got a lot of variety of skin textures and just miniature in general.
Yep.
And then on top of that, there's a lot of things unifying them. So like we've spoke about in a previous episode, someone was saying if they've got miniatures that are maybe older and miniatures that may be new and they don't look very, very similar, how can I tie them together? This is a perfect example of that. While they might not be different ages, they're completely different looking models.
Yeah.
If you look at like a big Troggoth at the back and then compare it to one of the little squigs at the front, like they're completely different.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of universal principles that are tying everything together and making it cohesive, while still adding a lot of individuality to all of the models. There's a lot of really vibrant colours that stand out that aren't uniform across all of the models, but that's kind of used as a feature, not as a bug.
No, definitely. I think that's one of the things. Like it just shows like this principle, which has been applied on the army, it just shows that you can make an army out of loads of different things within a faction, and that do have a lot of variance, and still create a really super cohesive look. And that's done obviously by the presentation, but it's also done as well by like the painting as well. So like, yes, there's a lot of variation in colors across it, etc. But at the same time, like there's an overall, one of the things that I when I saw it, I loved it, was that the lighting effect of like the nighttime moon lit look, that is kind of like the unifying thing over, even though they've got mad colours, like go mental, like literally it's your mental with colour on the army.
They're covered in mushrooms and all sorts of colourful fungi. It's great, isn't it? Look at that.
But we've spoken before about like basing, for example, and how it can tie everything together. I think the scenery is kind of taking up to the next step of showing people like that's doing so much of the heavy lifting. So when you've got models in your hand, especially when you're like, say, the painting process, maybe you haven't even done the basing yet, and you know they're literally on your hobby desk in parts, and you're painting them and they look quite different. You go, I'm not sure how this is going to work, but that trusting the process, unifying them together with a basing scheme, with some overall colours, and then you put it on the table, you go, okay, it works.
Well, that's exactly it, because I always say like the base is like the frame of the miniature. The base is not only just the frame of the miniature, but it's also the environment and setting that model is within, and to not give it the same level of care and attention and investment for a grand spectacle, it massively props you up and helps you by having that unifying thing across the army. And this was a great example of that, you know, to when I first saw it. In general, when you're sort of like trying to create an army and put that level of depth in it should be that you look at everything like in twofold. You look at it from the grander scale, like this is the big thing, and then you also translate that down as you're working through it to create that. And I think with those principles, like it will really help you to just create an army which looks amazing when it's all together. But then when you do individually look at miniatures and stuff like that, it gives you that sort of like level of investment that you've applied across everything. And then it's the sweet spot, if you get me. It's like if that's kind of like what I'd advise that you look for.
If it actually has made me think a little bit more about miniatures choice as well, because for example, like looking at Garrett's Space Wolves army, when I think about my own army, I've not been particularly interested in doing like any vehicles, for example. Because I quite like individual human sort of scale models, and I've not been too interested in that sort of stuff. But now this has made me sort of take stock and realize that when you've got an army, having those models does a lot to kind of sell the look of that, if that makes sense. Because when you see it in context, I actually like a lot of those miniatures more than I do individually, if that makes sense. So like I've been on record as saying I'm not a big fan of the new Primaris tanks, but when you see that on the board with the other models around it completely changes how I feel about that model. And now thinking about my own army in the future, it's like, do I not want a nice big block of just the chapter color to kind of like really draw the eye?
Yeah.
And what about a dread? What about dreadnoughts?
I haven't got any of the dreadnoughts. I think one is in the Death Company starter box that I picked up.
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on painting it, but now I'm thinking like, okay, well actually that would be quite a good way to really sell the force. And even with all of these armies from the competition, it's like there's all of these have something in common where there's some big centerpieces and some other models to break it up, and it makes it look a bit less monotonous just having a lot of infantry, or even if they're not just infantry, like a lot of the time special characters are the same size and scale as everything else. There's not a lot of height variation. There's not a lot of texture variation.
It's a bit like you can't see the woods for the trees.
So
sometimes you lose some of these other miniatures in amongst the miniatures.
100%.
So you're right. It does help break it up a little bit.
We frequently hear from you with questions asking how you can paint like our team of world-class and award-winning artists. Teaching is something that all of the team here at Siege are very passionate about, and we want to share with you the methods and techniques that we use to paint every single day all of the incredible miniatures and armies that you have seen from us. With the Siege Studios Patreon, you'll gain access to a growing catalogue of over 300 step-by-step tutorials covering a huge variety of colour schemes, miniatures, painting styles, and techniques, from beginner-focused foundation tutorials to full character masterclasses. Each lesson comes in a beautifully designed and easy-to-follow PDF format with accompanying artist commentary, with new tutorials added every single week. Your subscription also includes access to our private Patreon channels on Discord, so that you can interact directly with our artists, asking for questions or feedback. You'll also be supporting the podcast directly, helping us to bring you these episodes every single week. So if you want to take your painting to the next level and make the most of your very valuable hobby time, head over to patreon.com/Siege Studios.
If you don't want to do vehicles and you maybe have more of an infantry based army, like one of the things that I'd also say is like if you are trying to present an army, like scenery, it's not so much a part of the army, but it still gives you a fantastic presentation and it sells what that army is doing at that particular moment. And I think that's something that with the height thing specifically, if you are running an infantry that are quite, scenery allows you to raise infantry, lower them, or give the impression of like, obviously not give the impression, but have scale in the force as well, and stuff like that, which I think is really helpful.
And it's cool as well because even if you don't have army specific terrain, you can definitely get some terrain that is, you know, perhaps broader in appeal, but painted in such a way that implies that that's kind of like their compound or fortress or something like that. Because obviously, like with a lot of the Age of Sigmar models in particular, I know that there's a lot of like kind of specific stuff for them. But even if you're going broader than that, you know, if you've got an Imperium army for 40k and, you know, it's not necessarily like their thing. It might be like, you know, you've got a Mechanicus building or something, but who's to say that they're not like held up in there. And if you kind of add some of those elements of your force to that, you can kind of sell that effect.
Well, it's like tying the models to the scenery as well. It's not just about getting some scenery, putting the models on it, and then the basing theme being completely different to the scenery that they're on. Like if take the Mechanicus example, like I talk about it all the time. You can get like watch parts off of eBay. You can get a bag of old used watch parts, and if you've got Mechanicus scenery, you can put some cogs and things on the bases, and it kind of that'll just create the link in the chain, so to speak, between the base of the miniature and the environment and setting that you're wanting to present them in.
You could even use it for contrast as well, because say that they're, you know, during battle they're, you know, taking it to someone else's front door. Do you know what I mean? So you could be invading a fortress of an opposing faction, and you've got them placed within that environment. It might be a bit of a juxtaposition, but that could kind of be used to benefit that. Maybe you could have some, you know, dead or, you know, casualties from the opposing faction as part of the terrain and scenery to help kind of sell that effect.
Yeah. Or even like, I mean, you know, when you see Marines with like dusty boots for like desert, so just build the rest of how does the rest of that look? What does the rest of that terrain
It's adding
look like?
Context, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
it looks great.
So for you, James, what made some of the armies stand out more than others then? Because as you said, there was a lot of entries, and even going through this article, there's a lot of photos.
I think there's all different things that will like pull you to. It's like the best way for me to explain it in when you look at loads of things like this, it's like when you go to an art gallery. That's like the best way. That's the best way for me to explain it. As you walk around, you will look at some things and go, oh, that's nice, that's cool. But then there'll be things that really just make you go, I'm going to stop and have a look at this. And that's the best way for me to really kind of like explain the thought process of like looking at things. And I
suppose that's different for different people as well, isn't it? Because
exactly,
like you said, with an art gallery, you might sort of at something,
but
and then
someone else will be captivated by it.
I went to an art gallery, right? I went to the Tate Modern, and what I saw there was mannequin parts wrapped up in brown tape. That did make me stop and look.
I remember I went there and there was like a pile of sand. No explanation, just a pile of sand. Yeah. I mean, there are things that when I say stop, I mean to have a look at them, go, wow, that's amazing. Not stop and go, wow, what the hell is that? Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Totally.
20 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably worth a lot more than that if it's in a tape. I think you're quite right in what you said, George, in the sense of like there's different things that pull the strings for different people. And like one of the things I can say for that is like, it could be obvious bias towards like factions, or it could be like, that you like certain models or things like that. They're the things which will captivate you. And like that everyone has a different emotive interest within a faction and within the lore and narrative and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the real interesting things. It's actually how everyone that enters can pull those strings different ways because of what they choose and what they enter. But like, I think overall, like for me, presentation is one of the most important things, because I think that is when you think of army, you think of a mass, a grand thing.
Yeah.
Not so much the almost the quality of painting and stuff like that is very much like in my mind, it's not secondary as in it's not important, but it's like that first hook of, wow, look at this army is the first thing. And then it should get more interesting as you dive into it. Does that make sense?
It's not, the painting isn't necessarily the most important thing.
No. Well, it is and it isn't. It's like for the first impact of army, it isn't. And then as you look more into it, that's kind of where
you can see that they spent a lot of time.
Where you spent a lot of time. That's the best way to be. And I think when you're looking to paint armies and create armies and do that, I think that there shouldn't be a dominance of one or the other. It should be both are as important as each other. So like when you're trying to create an army that looks great, whether it's on a display board or in a cabinet or
table,
wherever, it should be both of those. It's a true 50-50. It's not like 10% this, 90% this. It's
part of my brain assumes that these are all like the people that enter this are actually using those armies in games rather than I'm painting an army for this competition.
Why wouldn't you though? If you've got an army that looks as great as this, I'd be
but it's
dead
not
excited.
like Golden Demon, where I think, well, I'm going to enter Golden Demon. I'm just going to paint this miniature just for this competition. Whereas part of me just thinks, well, this is my army that I paint really well.
Yeah.
So I'll enter it for this competition.
But I think that's one of the really beautiful things about this is like whenever I've thought of armies of parade in the past, I've never thought that people create a whole entire army just to enter the competition. I'm sure there are people who have. And again, there's no right or wrong here or good or bad. But I've always thought of it as it's a presentation of the army that you're really proud of in game with. And that's the way that I've always thought of it. And I'm sure as time progresses from when Armies on Parade started to where it is now, I'm sure maybe it would.
Well, it would be hard work to do something on this scale for something just for the sake of a competition if you wasn't already really, really passionate about it and you didn't already really, really enjoy the models.
Exactly.
Or maybe you're at a point where you've got the majority of an army and Armies on Parade. We talk about how you can use deadlines and competitions and stuff to excite you and motivate you. Maybe you've got a force that's say 60% of where you want it to be. Maybe seeing Armies on Parade in the horizon is what gives you that kick and that fire to finish it off and get it to a level that you're really, really proud of.
It is a fantastic motivator. And like, I always see things like this, like Golden Demon or any competition as like a celebration of painting. And really that's what this is. It's seeing all these amazing things and ideas and the creativity and the investment of time and effort and skill that like really like is the thing to be celebrated. And that's one of the things that I think that if you're using it to just get an army done for whatever, or if you're just trying to create something just for it, whatever avenue you're choosing to undertake this or Armies on Parade or whatever, I think that thought process, going back to what I was saying about it being like, don't just think of, I want it to look great from a photo of all the models together, but I also, I would personally invest the amount of effort into the individual model, because that all stacks up on top of each other and is only sort of like boosted by the grand look of it all, if you follow me, and I think the extra level of care and attention that you can put into it is not just, there's nothing wrong with just having a board and then like having the models out on it, whatever, maybe doing a slight backdrop or something like that. But I think that a lot of the things for me that were like really, really just immersive is like when the board is like actually tailored and themed to the armies, for example.
It's made me think I might actually do a sort of display board for my army, because at the minute it's just in a glass cabinet, and I think when it gets to the point where I've got quite a few models, I think seeing that as its own project of like, okay, how do I want to present these models? And getting some terrain painting and stuff involved as well. I think it'd be a really, really nice thing to do.
Do you know what it really, like the thing I'm talking about, it's almost like a minor version of the displays that you'd see at Warhammer World. That's
for sure.
Kind of like the kind of the things that I'm talking about. Like one of them that for me I loved, like, and I just is the Iron Warrior board. I think
Neil Maxwell.
Maxwell's one. Neil Maxwell Talbot. It like it's all about those models. First of all, like, and this is what I talk about strings and things like that. Like just like. I love old models, as everyone probably knows. Like, and I saw obviously the old models, the fantastic miniatures, and then
I'll be honest, I didn't actually notice that they were old models until you've just said that.
but that's the thing. It's like the overall spectacle of it is so good, and like it for me, like I love the fact that the board was like it's a trench network, so it fits in with Iron Warriors. They're sorry to use the company name, but they're sieging a position or whatever, like and. It was a really cool like it felt more like when I saw it for me that kind of epitomized to me what like a presentation in my mind, if I was going to do one, all the things that I would love to do and put into it. So like have a board that's like that's very immersive, that's fit into the army, and then like it's silly little things like like posters in the trench things like that. It's that level of detail which and that often's overlooked, but what it actually adds is it sells the immersion to like for you or for anyone that looks at it, or when display boards as well, just to touch upon it, like it's not so prevalent here in the UK, but like when I went to Adepticon a couple of years ago, I think in 2019, like Adepticon, there's massive tournaments that are on there. People make like super immersive display boards for their army for a tournament, like and it's like there's obviously like best painted like awards and stuff like that at those tournaments, but I think that just it helps it sell what your passion for your army massively. Like we always say that the lore is so deep and rich, and it almost feels like not using that it's losing the soul of that faction a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it any other way than that. But like, that was one of the things that I really would advise anybody doing, like when they're trying to present something, like to just to go to that level.
Have a go. Yeah.
Like there's loads of things you can do which just add so much immersion to the, like I was saying about like watch parts on a base, or like or if they're in like a cathedral, like cut up some like perspex and maybe just like paint it with some inks and stuff. And then you can break it all up and create like stained glass, stained glass on the floor. It's that level of kind of like interest.
And like you said before, is that level of thing as well is like a whole nother hobby.
Yeah, of course it is.
It's a whole other section of the hobby that you rarely get to delve into.
No, exactly.
We're always so focused on these little sort of 40 mil bases.
Yeah.
But why not go massive?
And I think as a painter, it's like looking at all of these winners has really inspired me to think more about the bigger picture, which I've always struggled with, but I think it's really cemented the impact and the importance of the narrative of the Force, the overall vibe and theme of the Force, how it looks in its environment, the story it's telling, more than how many highlights did you do. When I sit and pick up the model and turn it upside down and I really scrutinize it, can I see a mistake? Like stuff like that's way, way, way less important than I always give it value for. I think in part for being around so much like competition painting and high-end painting. And that is obviously what I enjoy, and I'm not going to stop doing that necessarily. But I think the idea of like grabbing one of the Christmas boxes that's coming out for like a new army and just start to finish, seeing it as one thing, seeing it as this is the army, I'm going to paint the army like this, and I'm going to have it in this environment, and this is what I'm going to do for the basing, and this is some of the customization I'm going to do. Looking at it as one thing rather than, right, next up is Infernus Sergeant. I'm going to do this for. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Seeing, like you said, the forest
Space
from the
Marine
trees.
number two.
Yeah. I
3
think
months later.
that's what I was trying to get at, where I was saying like that the army and the environment and the setting should work in harmony with each other, in the same way that your level of interest on the miniatures should work in harmony with the level of interest on the bases, and like everything should work together to create that grand spectacle that we always go on about, and that Peachy said obviously when he was on.
And I don't think it needs to be like dramatic stuff either, because like we've spoken about some of these winners have got more, I would say, intricate basing than others, and environments and boards than others. But even some of these are just on a table, but it's still, that effect is still sold across the basing of the miniature, and having, in the background other models from the force, if that makes sense. So it's not just about going and building a massive trench scene and getting into this whole other, side of the hobby. It's not necessarily about that. It's just about viewing the force as a whole.
We kind of see it here in the studio as well, because obviously when we get armies in and I unpack them, I stick them on the trays. I mean, they all look lovely models, but then when George is setting them up for like some big photographs and things, and you see the army sort of set up there, it is like another level of
course it is.
They get that massive impact from that group there rather than just the individual.
Well, as someone who takes the photos of those scenes, it's made me appreciate models more than I did without seeing them there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we get a lot of variety of stuff, and obviously have my own personal biases and preferences and miniatures that I like. But sometimes there'll be something that didn't necessarily excite me, and then I put the whole army on the board and I see it all together and I go, "Oh wow, that's actually really cool."
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things. Is like you there are so many variables. This is one of the most exciting things about painting an army and trying to present it, and all that, is that it's not just painting. So there's a presentation, there's basing, there's like effects, like you mentioned about effects as well. Like, again, to touch upon it, the lighting effect from the moon across all of Andrew the Winner's models was a thing it's completely separate to the basing, the overall presentation. It's just an effect that's been done on the model.
But it's a big overarching decision.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's so many different avenues as a creator of a presentation that you can play with to end up with an amazing result. And I think that's one of the things that was really inspiring from looking at all the entries.
It's a big commitment as well. It's like going big on that, because you could take one of those models and do some like lighting effects and pat yourself on the back and say that one's quite cool. Yeah. But to make an overarching decision for that, I think it's much more impactful.
Yeah, and that 100%. That I like, one of the things I really want to say that I is like, just there was so much stuff in there that was inspiring, and that's like one of the really amazing things. Whether you're entering like Armies on Parade or a local tournament or a painting competition, like I think that's one of the things that just looking at them and having a look at all the amazing things that have been done, it's super, super inspiring.
How could you look at these and not be inspired?
Exactly.
And I think there's so many factions in here, like even with the Gloom Spike kits, I think they're cool miniatures, but seeing them like that has made me think about them completely differently.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you're a long-term listener of the podcast, you'll know how important it is to have the right tools to aid you in your painting. And if there's one piece of equipment that I could never live without, it's my Onyx lamp from Native Lighting. It doesn't matter what brush or paints you have if you can't see what you're doing in the first place. The Onyx is the perfect lamp for miniature painting because its super bright 2,200 lumen LEDs cast soft and diffused light on your models without any harsh shadows. And its daylight balanced color temperature of 6500K gives you the confidence that the colors you are painting are accurate. As someone with a very small hobby desk, by far my favorite feature though is its articulating arm, which clamps to the side of your desk, maximizing your workspace. It's also super adjustable, so you can sit comfortably in the perfect painting position without sacrifice. It also folds up into a compact shape, which is great if you like to travel to paint with your friends. To upgrade your setup and order yours now, head to siegestudios.co.uk/shop or head to the link in this episode's description.
Also, as well, when you're looking at these things, like from an amateur point of view, if you're sort of worried about building an army up, when you see all these things, you can sort of pick out, well, I'm not going to see those details so much, so perhaps I can spend less time doing that across the army and just concentrate on some of the other things. And perhaps if I wanted to go back to those things when like the bulk of it's finished.
With it's almost like it's like when you're trying to paint an army for like a presentation or stuff like that. It's almost like a refinement process. It's like you get them to a certain point, you do all these certain decisions. You get to it should be really exciting because you get to lay it out and look at the army you've created and then take a step back and go, wow, look at that, it looks great. Or actually, do you know what? The plasma guns in all the squads, maybe they could be a bit brighter. Or maybe, you know, like maybe this color looks really dominant on the army. Maybe I need to add another color that contrasts it so that it's not so like jarring, just that one color. Or like it's a completely different way of painting when you're painting for like a presentation and like and you're trying to create something that's a bit different, you know. And I think that army painting, as much as I've in my own area of time, I've stepped away from it a little bit. This being involved in this in Armies and Parades, it did honestly make me go, oh God, I want to go back to painting armies. But it was as good. It was a great thing to see all these amazing miniatures and presentations. But at the same time, it did make me think, have I made the wrong decision? I'm like, no.
There's nothing wrong with going back to those
No,
armies
I know,
and painting
I know.
the odd miniature here.
Yeah,
and
of course.
there.
He'll be back, Paul. He'll be back.
I've got some Mordian time booked in over Christmas, so it's fine.
Mordians that you got.
Yeah, there's some Mordian time over Christmas. But no, I think for anyone watching this that's like wanting to create like a really like impactful army, or like just try and create something for their recollection, I think some of those points that we've discussed will really help you to sort of like make informed decisions. And like, again, we always say about a fresh eye check when it comes to painting miniatures. I'd probably say that like painting an army, you need to do fresh eye check way more, because it's not.
What do you mean fresh? Like
stepping away from it, and then like maybe rather than stepping away from it and not painting stuff, laying it out and going, cool, how does this is where I'm up to. I'm going to lay it all out and present it, you know, and how does that look? Oh, maybe do you know what? It's all a bit flat. Maybe I do need to add in a bit of scenery, or add in a big tank, or, you know, or maybe I need to do something with the bases because they're getting lost a little bit. Or maybe
I thought that adding this color would really, really stand out. And now I see it on a board, I realize it's actually a bit flat. I should have gone more dramatic with the color choice.
Yeah. Or you paint your display board, or you make your bit of scenery or whatever it is, and you put the models on it, and you've done your basing, and you, like you said, you know, that they're, you know, if I actually chose this color, maybe I've got them on Martian bases, or maybe I've got them on like this color base. Maybe I actually need to put them on this base because it will just work with the models better, you know, like the fresh eye check, or like or laying it out and then having a look at it and then going, oh, does that look right? Or maybe I need to do this. That reset point, I think I'd actually probably say to someone that's trying to build an army, whether it's for gaming or if you want to stick it in a cabinet or enter Armies on Parade or whatever, I think like having time to actually look at it as that grand spectacle, and you can embellish it with as much detail as you want, like on individual models and all that kind of stuff. But I think don't just paint all the models in like a unit, a character, this or this or this, and then stick it together. I think you do massively need that overarching a thing all together.
I think you need to see it all and have everything part painted and together so that you can start to make some of those big decisions and things that are going to be more impactful. It's like, rather than completely finishing this squad and then completely finishing this squad and then painting this character as a reward and then going to this, or even, okay, I'm going to get it all to tabletop standard and then move on. I think like maybe get all the base colors on, or maybe even just, you know, doing your main color prime or with the airbrush or whatever you're doing, then getting on the table and going, right, okay, I think when I add the red accents, that will work with that. And maybe I won't do it on that because he's actually a bigger model than I thought it was going to be. Okay, maybe then go off and do those things, bring it all back together and then assess again. Okay, maybe I need to add some contrast here. Maybe I should actually do the boots black instead of brown. Okay, let's go back, refine that, bring it all back together and kind of make these big decisions overall rather than on a unit by unit basis. And I think continually getting it all together on a table, taking a step back, maybe taking some photos, having a think on it. I think that is one of the things that you could do to get a really, really impactful army.
Do you know one of the real, because I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone knows this, and put it in the comments. I think one of the real interesting categories from Armies and Parades, actually the team one. There's actually a team category. So like you can get together with a couple of your friends. And like if you got like, quite convenient here that three of us like Blood Angels, but like you can
So he couldn't get it done on his own. He's trying to write past him, Paul.
Hang on a minute.
Okay, there's always a rule bend. All right, okay. But yeah, like you can get together with a couple of your friends that maybe like a specific faction, or you've all read a book and go like, I love Black Legion. I've read the Talon of Horus, and like I want to create Kion and Fire Fist and all these characters, etc. Let's make an army set from that book or whatever. Like you can do some that as a category. It's quite cool because you can actually get like multiple chefs creating the meal, if that makes sense. And I think that's quite an interesting...
But you know what they say? too many chefs spoil them.
Yeah, I know.
So, and then if your army doesn't place because of a specific reason, you know who to blame in your team. Then, don't
I mean,
you?
there is that. I
Yeah,
suppose.
we'll blame James, Paul.
Yeah. He didn't do any of it.
Yeah. But you know, I just think that's quite an interesting thing. Is that
That
like,
actually quite. Yeah, I didn't
it's
know that.
fun.
Was a
It
thing.
could be
That's quite
fun.
cool.
Like it's fun to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
just like get a couple of your. I think that's really cool. Like hobby sort of thing.
It seems like
do.
I don't want to say it's this seemed like a bad thing, but it seems like a bit more of a relaxed experience. This kind of type of competition.
Do you know what it
rather
is?
than
I think it's
the hardcore.
I don't think it's really like that. For me, it's like it's just about presenting something in whatever you're presenting it for. I'm talking about if you go to a tournament and you take an army, or if you do get together with a couple of friends and do something for the team category in Armies and Raid or whatever. Like, I just think it's something really interesting that you can just let your passion and let your creativity.
It's more like about the hobby.
Yeah, 100,000,000%.
All different aspects of the hobby.
100%, yeah. And I think that's one of the really exciting things about it, about creating an army on your own or with friends, or like, I think that's a really cool thing that just means you can have loads of different creative input into something, and just it's a really, really fantastic thing.
Should we do the news on that note?
Yep,
let's
let's
do
do it.
Okay. First on my list, the Colourforge signature series of spray cans is now out and in stock.
Very exciting.
Siege Armour, of course, was ours, and there were some other creators from the community who've got some awesome colours as well. So if you want to check those out, affiliate link in the description helps us out, and you can get your own can of Siege Armour if you want to do some brass metallic projects.
Nice.
If you're a Necrons player, or if you want to try the
Some
Siege exemplars of Siege.
Yep.
And also we've talked about how they're great for like colour tinting or whatnot, metallics. It's really awesome stuff. Also on my list, War Boot. It's coming up.
Coming up very soon, isn't it? 1st of December.
1st of December, Barleylands in Essex. Come down and get all the bargains that are in store.
That's it.
Yeah.
I need to just went, why, hey, man? But that's not Essex, is it? That's totally
You can
wrong.
travel down from there. Yeah, definitely.
Come down.
I'm going to be going. I'm going
George-
to finally make it. I've had this set in my calendar. I'm excited.
He
for
won't
this.
be there. Yeah.
Every single time we do one of these, you're like, War Boot's great. James comes back. He's got his haul. And I feel left out, all right? And then every single time one comes
that's
up,
true.
I'm busy.
Yeah.
So I've had this in the calendar. I'm excited.
1st of December.
I'm expecting.
We want you there before we arrive.
Yeah, before we
Well, I have to get there before James. There'll be nothing left.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's very true.
We have to get there blooming early then.
Yeah. No, very exciting. Warboot returns, obviously, as we said, looking forward to it. I think this Warboot is sold out for traders. So there are no trader spots left. And it's the first time that the trader spots have sold out like months in advance. So
It's the Christmas one, isn't it? So
it's
it's
the Christmas one, yeah.
Yeah, we've
which
got
is-
some good
which is-
stuff there.
Yeah.
So I guess
Juicy
if you want to
bits.
get some, not only bargains on Warhammer, but if you want to get some rare stuff, some out production stuff.
If you want to get stuff before James does as well.
So I've already seen some of the traders send in photos of what they're going to be bringing, and all I'm going to say is you're going to want to be there because there's some absolutely amazing bits, OG old bits that are coming. So
Well, perhaps
so,
you
yeah.
have to send James out to grab some coffees while we get the other people a chance to get some stuff.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of really good stuff.
worth a fair drive, I would say, this sort of stuff.
We have quite a lot of people coming from very far away to come and.
There's not a lot of
come
this
to it.
stuff dotted around the country, so make the most of it. It's a small island, everyone. Like, I don't know why
Yeah,
everyone's
we're not that far apart, are
No,
we? Really?
not really. No, I think you can. Yeah, I said, but like it's worth the travel. And I said, like, we've had people come from like Brighton and like from the Midlands up north, like
Birmingham and all-
Birmingham.
yeah,
Yeah, so
long way.
we get a good amount of people turn up for it, which is great. But yeah, this should be really busy, and there's lots of
It'll be packed as well, won't it?
yeah, lots of awesome stuff.
nice. Have you got anything on your wish list for like? So if you saw it at Warboot, you would definitely get it.
Oh my god!
I think there's always amazing stuff there.
Yeah,
so like,
you don't know until you see it.
yeah, that's the thing. It's in the moment.
You know,
Is it often? Do you often see stuff that you didn't even really know about, but then you see it and you're like, I've got to have that?
That does
all the
happen. Yeah,
time,
that
yeah.
does happen. You'll see stuff. And go, I've never seen one of those before. Like it does happen, which is always exciting.
But
So-
like we get people there that create bases or like tying in with this episode. People make sort of awesome bases for sale and all sorts of other stuff. Isn't there? There's all
literally-
sorts of things.
It's not like I said. Even though there's a lot of obviously miniatures and books and like all that kind of stuff there, we have like we've got a couple of traders that do like Magic cards. If you're into Magic the Gathering, like there's that as well. So there's all manner of different things that people bring. Obviously, it's all wargaming orientated.
Didn't we have a Nintendo booth once?
We did. There was a Nintendo. There was an
Yeah,
OG.
there's a Nintendo one.
Like, there's a
Yeah, that was
classic games booth that was there once,
Yeah.
which was interesting.
For some
So-
random reason.
That's a bit of variety then.
so,
Yeah.
not to give anything away too much, but you'll obviously be running the Siege stand, Paul.
Yeah.
What sort of stuff might be on the horizon?
It's all top secret.
Yeah, we can't really say.
Can't really say.
We?
All I'm going to say is you're going to want to be there.
People that have been many times before, we get the regulars. They come because of our stall. That's what they say. So I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
Paul's been curating a lot of bits. So.
Yeah, so we get there's always plenty of stuff on our stall to grab.
Yeah.
Granted, most of the characters are always nicked.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be some great stuff there to buy at some pretty good prices. Let's just say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nice.
It's Christmas.
Paul will be wearing a Christmas hat. So
maybe I will.
Oh yeah, it's in December. In my books, as soon as it's December 1st, you're allowed to do Christmas stuff.
Yeah, we might.
So.
I wonder if we should take some of the old Siege bobble hats with us.
maybe, yeah.
Maybe. We might do. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Final little thing. We're going to have a new link in the description for these episodes. It's an affiliate link. Me and James get a lot of DMs from you listeners asking for products that we recommend. And then in the Discord, so I'm like, what was that varnish that they said about? It's getting a bit complicated. All right. And we talk about a lot of products on the show. So we wanted to have everything in one place. So there'll be a new link in the description to Element Games, who we partner with. And there'll be all of the sort of Siege recommends from the podcast. Just going to be like the core things that are always our go-tos rather than just, random new stuff. It's going to be stuff that's pretty fundamental to our hobby, I would say. And stuff that we stand by and we use a lot.
Rather than copy pasting about 60 links to people on a weekly basis, I will be copy pasting one link that will have everything. So yeah.
And of course, like I said, that is an affiliate link. It does help us out directly. So if you want to check that out and see some of the products we recommend, we get a little bit of kickback as well. Helps keep the show going. We'd appreciate it. Otherwise, no pressure at all. It's just there if you want it. If you don't want to click it, that's up to you.
But click it.
Question of the week time. Thank you everyone for submitting your questions for question of the week. If you have a question that you would like us to answer on a future episode of the podcast, please leave it in the comments down below on YouTube. This week we have a question from Adam L2910 who says, it's a lot of words that, isn't it? It's good how
Yeah. It's just nice and just let it flow.
Just flows. My brain's on autopilot for that. He says, when I am painting, I often find a little ball forms at the tip of the brush. At first, I thought it was a broken hair, but I'm not sure now. When I clean the brush or peel it off, it's no issue. But I'm wondering, what is this and how should I deal with it?
It's dry paint, I want to say.
Dry paint, yeah.
It happens to me as well, but I'm trying to do really fine details, not so much like the base work and stuff, but if I'm trying to do something really small and I put a little bit of paint on there, that then dries before I get it to where I need it, and then I just put some more paint on, and then that ball steadily grows and grows, and then I can't lift the brush up anymore.
I found that
it's coming at the Christmas. Baubles on the end of the paintbrushes. It's coming.
I found that the main culprit for this usually is a hair that is slightly too long.
Or could
from
it be
where
a
manufactured.
slightly curved hair that sort of grips onto the paint, doesn't want to let you...
I think the general consensus is it's paint that's drying on the end. If you've got a slightly longer lead hair, I mean, it takes time for brushes to wear in, and that lead hair will not wear down, but it will just the point of the brush will just get, when you first get a brush, it's not that it's the best, but it's got like a couple of lead hairs, and as you work it, you break the brush into being used, if that makes sense.
So
go on.
When you get a new car, you've got a new engine, you run it in for 60 miles? What would you say for a brush?
What, a number of passes?
Just,
60 brush strokes.
60 brush strokes, yeah, I don't know. Don't quote me on that yet.
I would say if you've got one that is quite bad for this, at your own risk, I have historically put on the old magnifiers, got on a little cutting mat, splayed it out, get my onyx lamp in close, nice and bright, with a very, very sharp scalpel blade, just very, 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 very carefully, just nick the end off, and normally that sets you all right.
And that's like the absolute lead hair, so that you don't get rid of the point. You just
it should be pretty obvious if there's one, like literally one singular hair, because it's literally one hair.
Yeah,
it doesn't really hold enough paint, so it dries out really quick.
I haven't really had this problem with brushes for quite some time in the sense of getting lead hairs, but like I have had it in the past and I have done exactly what you said. So yeah, I do agree totally. But generally, like I think there's two other things that I'd like to just throw into the mix, which I think could also be something that you're potentially just not thinking about while you're painting, because obviously you're focused on painting, which is perfectly normal. first things first is the thing I go on about quite a lot, which is friction. If you're brushing really, really hard or too aggressive or whatever with the brush, you're creating more friction, which is creating more heat, which is drying that paint on the end of the brush, which is could potentially be creating that sort of dry bit of paint on the end of the brush. The other thing is not resetting your brush enough. So if you're painting, and I generally will choose a color, take the excess off, do the work on the model, and then if I'm going to work another area, I'll reset the brush, we'll rinse it out, dry it, and then repoint it. I think if you're not doing that reset process enough within your painting as you're working, that could also lead to the brush potentially drying out quicker and also getting clogging.
That was something that early on into painting, I picked up from watching other people paint, like especially professionals, was how often they're rinsing the brush and then drawing new paint.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because they've run out of paint on the brush, but it's like you said, it's starting to dry out.
Yeah.
And that water is evaporating as you're going.
Yeah.
So trying to get in the habit of, obviously it's going to depend on the brush size and how thin the paint is. So don't take this as like, the absolute rule. But, even as regularly as every like 30 seconds, like actually rinsing off the brush and starting again can really, really help combat drying paint and some of the issues that it has.
I think resetting the brush is very much like it aids with refinement as well on the miniature, because like if you're picking paint up with a reset brush that's pointed as sharp as possible and you're picking up a tiny bit of paint to do a tiny little bit of work or detail, just by doing that reset process, it will help with your work being more refined, if you follow me. And I think that
because you're taking like a little mini break, and then
exactly, and the
brush is getting back to its highest performance point. Is obviously immediately after you've drawn that paint, and then it's almost like a stopwatch has started the second you pick up the brush, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then as you're going on and on and on, the brush is becoming, the performance is getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and then you rinse it, and then it's back to the peak, and then down.
Yeah.
So I need to practice that more. Not just like, right, I'm starting this model, and then 8 hours later, then wash the brush.
Yeah. Even while you're working with one color, like even while you're blocking in or like or layering or whatever the case may be, like I see a lot of people that will like load the brush and use it for ages and ages and ages and keep reloading the brush from the palette without putting it into water, rinsing it out, repointing, reloading. I think that even if you're doing a lot of work with one specific color, that shouldn't mean that you reduce the amount you reset the brush, in my opinion. I think you should, that reset
Still
process,
paint, isn't it?
Yeah, that reset process should continue to be infrequent so that you're using the brush at its best performance it can do. That's
and generally speaking, the smaller the brush, the shorter that time interval needs to be. Larger brush obviously holds more, bigger belly, holds more water, more moisture, so it's going to not be as quick. You might get away with twice as long as you would for a brush half the size. That makes sense.
Because I've been there where I've been like using one brush for ages and like using one color or whatever, and then you get to that cliff edge of it's now not performing, and you're like I've got to do that. Whereas if you just if the paint starts to dry, or if the head starts to just not perform as well, like you're actually wasting probably more time getting the paint that has started to dry out the brush and getting all that to then reload it with the same paint again. Whereas if you're just being more frequent with your reset, you're going to get a more consistent use of it.
And you're going to save money in the long run because your brushes are going to last a hell of a lot longer, because you're not going to have to be doing these thorough, aggressive cleans all the time, because your brush is going to be generally in better shape.
I was going to say,
paint's not really drying out in it because you're constantly,
if it's drying on the tip as well, the very tip, could it be drying inside the ferrule as well?
If you're loading the paint into the ferrule, then possibly. But like if you're using it, leaving a third of the brush head without paint on it, you should be fine. But yeah,
just asking for a friend. That's all.
That's fine. It's okay. Yeah.
I found I found with metallics as well, it can be a little bit more difficult. 'Cause I'm sure you've been there where you rinse out your metallic brush and then you look at it and you can still see the little flecks in there, and you've got to get in there.
Yeah,
I've often found that that's still happening with coloured acrylics, but because it's not these sparkly little microflakes, you can't see it as well. Then over time, that's just sat there and it's deteriorating the quality of your brush. So your brushes will last a lot longer and they'll perform better for longer as well.
Yeah. So, that's what I advise.
Nice. And don't just bite the little blob off on the end.
Don't bite
that
off.
off.
No.
Not that I do that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay. Our final weekly tradition on the podcast is, of course, hobby hacks. This is where we share a little quick tip, a painting hack with you that you can implement into the hobby. James, I think, is coming at us again with a little demo.
Blue Peter time.
Doozy this week, haven't you? It's going to be amazing. Just
don't big it up.
Buckle yourself in.
Don't big it up.
Put on your crash helmets.
It's not that eye-wateringly amazing, so don't worry. But it hopefully it will help some people as much as possible. Now, I like paint quite a bit.
Yeah,
I think it's quite well known that I'm a bit of a paint hoarder. So I'm quite familiar with lots of different paint pots, and I know that there's a little bit of frustration with this range of paint pots from Citadel. I don't actually have that much of a problem with them, being honest. I think one of the most important things is actually, again, we talked about valuing your time and obviously deciding what the session's for. If you've got 20 minutes to kill, this is a thing that I do literally whenever I have a little bit of time to kill.
I generally go and get a snack. I don't know. What
I mean, I'll do that as well. I'll do that as well.
Okay,
but like that's 5 minutes of the 10 or 20 or whatever it is. But
should be doing this instead.
But here we have a paint pot that has got obviously a lid that's not sitting correct, and ultimately this will lead to the paint drying out. And look, I want everyone's paints to behave as long as possible, and obviously endure for as long as possible. This is obviously frustrating, but this happens for one reason and one reason only. It's obviously when you open the pot, I see people that open the paint pots and they literally will leave the paint pot open for ages, which is obviously a problem in itself for drying. But what actually happens with these is if you're shaking it, which most people will do, they will shake it, paint will accumulate on the lip, and a lot of paint, if it's viscous and it moves quite a lot, when you open it, that paint will then run down the lip, and it's the moment that you draw the lid too far back, as in if it goes to like this position here, it will fall under the lid, and then when you close it, that's when it splurges and goes round on the inside of the thing, which is the big problem. So the first little hack within a hack within a hack in hackception time is to not open the paint pot lid all the way, because that will mean that the lip still stays. So when I open it, when I use these, I open the lid. Think of it like Pac-Man, where Pac-Man will open his mouth a little bit rather than nomming quite a lot. It'll nom a little. But all can do sound effects. That's the first thing, is to not lift that lid too high. The second thing that I'd advise is obviously, and you can see it actually doing it now already, there's a big bubble of paint on there. The second thing is obviously that this ring here actually comes off the paint pot, which with a little bit of force will just come off, okay? And that obviously means that you can not worry about the paint pot. Now your hands will get a little bit messy. I'm gonna literally just flip this inside out, a bit of force, as you can see, it's quite a stiff one. If you do that, it means that all of this, which is built up around the paint pot, comes off, okay? You get a little bit of paint in your fingers or whatever, okay? Wear gloves. Just check and make sure there's no paint actually around there, and then all you do is literally tip that back inside, back on. The only thing you'll have to do, obviously, once you put the lid back on, is you see the little like wing or hook that's in here. Get yourself a tool or something, some clippers or something, and all you do is literally just flip that back through, and then it seals perfectly every single time.
Just as a hijack to your hack.
Yes.
Right.
Hijack hack.
Hijack hack time.
Paul, you have a chance to steal for 50 points.
Instead of all that rigmarole,
yep.
Right, I've got like a little short like knitting needle, or I don't know what kind of thing it is. It's like an old knitting needle. Pop your lid open.
Yep.
Just run the knitting needle around the rim of the thing.
I do.
It gets all that stuff out.
So, yeah.
And then you haven't got to muck about with the lid.
Well, I was going to say two things.
Hackception.
It does.
You're welcome.
You can do that.
But
the amount of times that, two things.
Yeah, sure.
When you do that, sometimes you don't get it all out and it breaks because it's plastic.
No, which bit's breaking?
Well, this will break sometimes, and you'll leave a little bit in.
It's hard. It can be hard to get it out in one nice smooth
thing.
Why is it? Because you're not paying attention to what you're doing.
No, but it varies. Sometimes it does come out in one piece. Sometimes it doesn't. But
you dig the bits out. Yeah.
If it doesn't, then you've got to spend ages doing it. With this, doing it way, you can.
I've got 20
just
minutes
take it
spare.
out.
You said. So.
Yeah, well, I want to do loads of pots, Paul. I don't want to do one.
I would say actually, as the mediator here, I've tried both methods.
Oh,
if I'm feeling lazy, I'll do Paul's method. I would say James is more foolproof. Hear me out. When trying to get out,
I think the hobby hack is over.
When trying to get out the little bits, I found that sometimes it might break and then it will fall into the pot.
I was going to say,
now I've got dried paint in my paint.
That is because you're not. You need to obviously pull the lid right back. So when you're digging these things out, it doesn't go straight in your pot. That is your own carelessness, George.
Well, all I would say is that if you pull the lid right back, more paint can go in there as well.
My hack still stands.
Right. Well, either way, hopefully that has helped.
Hopefully my hack has helped you.
Hopefully that hack has helped you to look after your paint pots.
Yeah.
Because I said they do seal quite well, and the problem is that it's any paint that gets into that part of the pot or the lid is going to cause you problems. And again, one of the things I do see is a lot of people painting with their paints, and they'll literally leave them open like this, as well, which causes a lot of problems.
That's probably because people don't transfer the paint to the palette.
Yeah,
and also another little tip for people with their paint: the longer you care for your paints, at some point, 20, 30 years from now, James will probably buy it from you.
There is that as well.
So it will become a retro paint.
There is that as well.
James will probably buy it.
There is that, yeah, most certainly. But no, hopefully that helps. And I said, like, maintaining your paint pots will just serve you better. I mean, ultimately it's going to save you money. You're not going to be spending as much money on paint because
they do last years. Don't
they? They do, yeah. If you look after them, they do. It's like anything. Like if you look after it, it'll last you longer than if you don't. It's just an obvious statement, but. I literally just take the lids off and turn them inside out, and then it means you can just pick out all that rubbich paint that's just
I wouldn't recommend it for like washes.
No, probably not. I tell you what though, it is so satisfying when you like it's really, really satisfying.
It's a bit like the painting your hand with PVA glue just so you can sit there peeling it off.
I mean, I've never done that as a kid, but okay, that's
some sort of trauma there.
But it is really satisfying, and it is good because it just means you can just do that for like 20, 30 minutes. You don't have to. You're still doing something hobby orientated that's actually bettering your hobby from that point moving onwards. Does that make sense? So yeah.
Nice. On that note, I think we'll round it out there. We're going to jump over now to the bonus segment of the podcast for our patrons. So if you want to get extended versions of this podcast with no ads, then check the link in the description to our Patreon. You can find all the details over there. And as well as that, you'll also gain access to hundreds of high-quality PDF and video tutorials, which we update every single week. Otherwise, we will see you on the next episode. So I thought it'd be cool to talk about maybe some painting goals that we've got for next year and how we're going to achieve them. Maybe we can keep each other accountable by two things. One, documenting it on video so we can't go back on our word. And two, by sharing your goals with other people, they can help keep you accountable as well.